If you're expecting a well thought out, well planned, well edited, well presented video on why I think Sir Count Binface is the next incarnation of the Waldo moment, then you're sorely gonna be disappointed. I'm making this just impromptu to get ahead of the curve in terms of the popularity of this subject matter. But the Clacton by-elections are happening now, and they're going to decide who's going to sit in the Members of Parliament section for that council or county, whatever. I don't really follow politics too much. I'm generally cynical and disengaged. But something about Count Binface really perked my ears up, and I want to talk about it. I'm going to operate under the assumption you already know everything that was displayed in the thumbnail and title of this video. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go on a long diatribe about what's what. So, the Waldo moment in Black Mirror is a episode of Black Mirror. Pretty divisive, actually. I'm surprised just how hated it is compared to other ones like Maisie Day or Metalhead. But actually, I really love Metalhead, and I really love the Waldo moment. It's about a comedian who plays a fictional TV bear called Waldo, and he's cynical and foul-mouthed and interviews celebrities and politicians. And as a marketing stunt to get Waldo out there into the mainstream, the producer suggests that Waldo, the fictional character, should run for a by-election to win an MP slot. So we're already drawing distinctions between a novelty comedy candidate and also the serious institution of becoming a politician. What happens is that initially it doesn't really go very well, but then they have a viral moment where Waldo confronts a conservative, mainstream, stuffy Tory politician. What happens next is that Waldo's success goes viral, and then, Waldo is seriously considered as a candidate for the slot. What happens next is that Waldo gains momentum in the political sphere, eventually turning just from a marketing gimmick to a voice of the unheard, kind of like championing the voices of people who are cynical, disengaged, not really focused on politics because of the institutions. Things are slow, and also they're not, working out for people, so they look to waste their vote on a novelty candidate, waste in quotation marks. And then the CIA gets wind of this, and they realize just how potent a weapon Waldo is. Instead of directing people into actual opposition, they use Waldo as a cul-de-sac of safe opposition to direct the politically frustrated away from protesting and rioting and pointing out the flaws of the system into participating in the system, aiding in the system, giving legitimacy to the system. But the thing is, the fact that Waldo is such a important figure and a serious candidate kind of also delegitimizes the whole political system anyway. Waldo doesn't exactly win the spot, he comes in second place, and the conservative member gets voted in. And I think the implications is if Waldo wasn't standing in the election, then the Labour candidate would have gotten in, and by the end would have been a less authoritarian future than what happened under the Tory leadership. The Tory candidate got voted in. Fast forward years, the comedian is now homeless because he didn't want his creation to be turned into a weapon for mass marketing. But then, he gets ousted by his producer. He gets to control Waldo, and the comedian becomes homeless. He's burned all of his bridges, and he's being shuffled around by cops wearing uniforms similar to that of the stormtroopers from the Hunger Games. Now that I've recapped Black Mirror, I want to talk about Count Binface. Now, Count Binface is a novelty candidate in the UK. If you really want to know the history of him, then just Google him. Wikipedia exists. But anyway, the point of this video isn't about Count Binface, it's about the phenomena of novelty candidates disrupting politics. If I was in the Clacton region, Sure, would I vote for Count Binface? I mean, maybe. I'm stuck between deciding wanting irony and destroying the status that politicians have, removing this air of power that millionaire politicians have, you know, by proxy in taking part in this sacred political institution that's rife with corruption, rife with pure evil and assassination and bloodshed and backstabbing and coalitions and whatnot. I would like to see that system that has so thoroughly put us into collective poverty and taken away our freedoms over the last couple decades. I generally would like to see Count Binface in Parliament, but that's only because I want to see the further replications of Count Binface all over the UK. I want to see where this goes. And I think Count Binface going into politics will set a precedent that if the establishment isn't going to listen to our concerns, we might as well make them look like clowns, basically. There's really no two ways about it. Although, on the other hand, I do want serious solutions. I don't exactly want politics to become a sham, because this is my conspiratorial brain speaking, but I think that Count Binface is maybe a plant from something more nefarious. Maybe he doesn't know it himself, but him entering politics will cause disaffected people to get engaged again. I think that's probably the dangerous thing about Count Binface, is that people who are disaffected and who won't vote and who accumulate voices of dissent when it comes to the economy and politics will then champion the political system by legitimizing it by voting somebody in, instead of like protesting or causing civil disobedience by not going to work or forming a general strike or disrupting businesses or standing in the way of politicians' limousines and just not participating in the political system. But instead, they're going to champion it and vote for people and not obstruct the ballot and maybe divert votes away that could legitimately beat establishment politicians. I don't think Count Binface is actively a CIA cyslop. I don't think he's been paid by the government to lure us into a false sense of security and get us back into voting, because the political establishment themselves don't like Count Binface because that he represents absurdity and he represents a delegitimization of the whole system. So I think out of this culture of apathy and cynicism about politics and the economy, people are putting Count Binface in because, one, he's a comedian, and people want to mock the establishment by putting someone who the establishment consider a outsider in. And maybe because Count Binface is just a comedian, he will maybe implement some effective policies that genuinely help people. Kind of like a king's jester in a way. King's jesters, while silly and were used for entertainment, they were the ones who could seriously criticize the king's policies, because killing the jester would indicate that the king can't take a joke. Also, the jester would have usually come from a peasant household, so they would know what the problems are of today. Problem is with politics in England is that it's an extremely hereditary field. The House of Lords, they're not experts in fields, they're experts in being born with the royal blood. Lordship is passed down through blood, and consequently, if you aren't an expert, you can get into the House of Lords. That's why people want to abolish it, because it provides just a reminder of this ancient aristocrat system that we just don't want anymore. I am a radical Republican, and I advocate for the abolishment of the institution of the monarchy. I don't think it's fair that people with magic blood get to sail through life scot-free, while the rest of us have to toil at work and have to generate money for the government, which then it wastes on shit that we don't need, and neglects the very poorest in our society in favour of the very richest in our society. I don't think Count Binface himself will completely solve the country, but I do think that he might set a precedent that will eventually lead to maybe more serious discussions, maybe when he finally wins his seat, which is what he's been trying to do over the last 6 to 10 years. I think he has a shot of doing something interesting. But then there's the Black Mirror version of it where other governments, and especially one in particular, the CIA that control the world, they pick up on this and they institute some sort of safe opposition that directs criticism away from the government and into a dancing clown to distract us, to divert our votes away, and to operate this sham democracy as if it was nothing more than a theatre and a pantomime, which we all know it is. We all know that our votes don't matter. We all know who really control the world. The elite billionaires who sit around the table of the World Economic Forum and the UN. It's definitely not a government seat table. It's definitely a billionaires only seat table, and for some reason celebrities get to go there, which I think is very weird. It emphasizes the point that governments are not in control, they are merely the facilitators of the billionaire class. If I had one request for Count Binface, all I'm asking is, please do not settle for establishment career politics as part of your comedic regime. If you can get an MP seat, bloody well use it. You might actually go down in history as one of the best MPs that we've ever had, but that requires action, and you need to actually do stuff. And I know talking about reducing the price of chocolate bars is fun, but it's not going to save us from the cost of living crisis, okay? Don't get bought out by the CIA, and definitely be skeptical about politics suddenly turning into a clown show to distract us from the government fucking us around, okay?